What?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sherlock. Sure, listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure, look. Sure, listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look. Sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen. Ooh, very exciting. We're week 4 of the never-ending Halloween. Week 3 of the never-ending Halloween. And sure, listen to me, Benjamin Colopy, you son of a bitch, the man who edits this podcast. This episode better be in black and white. That's all I'm saying. And I'm
That's
saying
all
it
he's
to you.
saying.
That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying it to you live on air. And I know I haven't spoken to you about it before, but this is the only way to get it to you. But anyway, sure, look, we don't have time to give out to each other because we've loads of stuff to look at, including you've watched. No, what's the thing for watched, but when the pictures don't move? You've read the latest issue and first issue of Unit Batman, the Batman comic about Batman being a big unit. And Benjamin, as well as that, we've both seen most of Vox Machina season 3.
We have, yeah. Most of Vox Machina season 3. Sure, listen, Michael, that's definitely
Yes.
not enough for a weekly comic pop culture podcast thing.
Whatever this is.
And it's definitely not spooky enough for the third week of a 5-week Halloween extravaganza. So,
Ooh.
Michael, instead, we're going to do one of our quintessential episodes, Michael.
Oh.
And this time we asked people to talk to us about the Twilight Zone.
Oh, that seminal classic of speculative science fiction.
Michael, it's arguably the reason we have a podcast today. The Twilight Zone defined what it was to put speculative fiction on the telly box.
Very good. Well, we better bloody get into it. But Benjamin, before we get into anything, is there anything the listeners could do to help speculate about our futures?
Well, in order to improve the possibility of our futures, ladies and gentlemen, you could probably pop along wherever you're listening, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts. That's dead now. But wherever you're listening, ladies and gentlemen, you might be listening from beyond the podcast grave on Google Podcasts. Give us a review.
From the future.
From the
When
future.
it's back.
Ooh, do. But ladies and gentlemen, come here to me. Listen to me.
Yes, what is
Esht, Anish, Acharja. Give us an
Go on.
L review wherever you listen. Please do.
Ben,
That'd
it'll
be
do
great
us the
for us.
world of good. It'll do us the
Ah.
world of good.
It's like a good night's sleep for podcasters, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh.
It puts us right as rain.
It's
Puts
so
us right as rain.
refreshing.
Give me your approval, random internet stranger.
Benjamin,
Yeah.
speaking of a good night's sleep, I'm nearly 42 and I had 3 pints of beer last night for the first time in about 3 years. I'm in bits. I'm absolutely hanging. This is a nightmare of a situation. And Benjamin, to add to that, you Benjamin Colopy, you have a deadline this week. And in your
I do.
effort to be on time, you've made yourself later. What a pair of terrible twists in the tales.
Very good. Very good. An Irishman who gets hungover and a punctual man who is always late. Very good.
That's what he thinks of himself, ladies and gentlemen. You don't suffer it, ladies and gentlemen, because this is recorded, so it doesn't matter to you. But I suffer.
It's nothing to you.
But this week, the only victim was himself.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, if that isn't the essence, the quintessence of bloody Twilight Zone, I don't know what is. Ladies and gentlemen, the Twilight Zone is just seminal, full of semen.
Seminal. Absolutely jam-packed with semen, Benjamin.
Chock a block with the stuff. Look, it's that famous thing, ladies and gentlemen. You find yourself on a country road. It's dark. It's twisted. Suddenly, it's neon purple. You find yourself in the Twilight Zone. But of course, Michael, that's a misattribution of the opening credits of bloody Twilight Zone.
Do go on, please.
But in the first seasons, Michael, there was nothing like that. He wasn't giving you a monologue. It was a very set monologue, Michael.
Well. So, yeah, okay. So we're talking about the Twilight Zone. This is another episode of the Quintessential, our long-running podcast idea in which we ask the listeners, the Reddit, the Facebook, the whatever else social media young people are on. We ask them, Benjamin, the books, the Facebooks, the Insta books, the TikTok books. We ask them and we say, Tell us your 5 quintessential episodes of this franchise. Tell us the 5 episodes of the Twilight Zone that are the most Twilight Zone-iest episodes. The real distilled semen of the Twilight Zone. Which episodes are the episodes of the Twilight Zone? Not necessarily the best episodes of any given franchise or series, but the
No.
most quintessential. But as it turns out, with the Twilight Zone in particular, because the Twilight Zone is the Benjamin,
Mm.
the horror
Mm.
anthology series,
Yes.
the quintessential episodes are also the best episodes, more or less.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a big old overlap. It's less of a Venn diagram and more of a circle, Michael, in this particular
It's
case.
a slightly wobbly circle, like the
Yes.
opening sequence of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
So look,
Go on.
no, come on.
Iconic theme music.
Ah, Michael, some of the best theme music. When we recommission our own theme song, Michael, we might get some kind of Twilight Zone riff going.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, such seminal theme music that it actually became synonymous with spooky goings on.
Yeah, you get that weird, eerie kind of orchestra theremin vibe. That's how you know. Look, like Michael, in terms of influence, like the X-Files lifted their bloody theme tune directly from the Twilight Zone. They're like, oh, you start with a spooky high pitch and then some echoey steps, and you go from there. That's what you do. That's how it works. Get
And
that
then you
into
get a man, Rod Serling, and he goes, "Welcome to a world where the world is not the world that you think the world is, but it's a different world in 5 dimensions, you son of a bitch."
Michael, one of the interesting things about this is I always knew Rod Serling as the fella off of Twilight, but I didn't know that Rod Serling was Twilight.
Twilight Zone, Benjamin, you're going to get a lot of hate for calling it Twilight. That's the one with
fair.
Bella and Edward, Ben. You're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and turns out Rod Serling played both Bella and Edward in the 1950s. I had no idea that Twilight
And Jacob
starring...
in the 80s remake.
and Jacob in the 80s remake. The Twilight Zone, ladies and gentlemen, is Rod Serling's baby.
Entirely. Not entirely. I mean, people gave him a dig out. But yeah, writer, producer, narrator.
Yeah, he's a big deal, was our Rod.
It's a whole thing.
Michael, I enjoyed kind of... Because I suppose it's important to clarify here, ladies and gentlemen, we're Irish. We're Irish.
Two pair of Irish fellas.
The Twilight Zone didn't get reruns here the way it probably did in the States. The Twilight Zone is something that I first encountered, Michael, in The Simpsons, of all things.
And that's going to come up, believe it or not.
That's going to come up. It's unavoidably going to come up. I remember watching the Treehouse of Horror episodes, Michael, and going, what the fuck is this shit? And my dad going, it's just the Twilight Zone. I was like, Dad, come here to me. I said to him as an 8-year-old child, Dad, look at me.
Yeah.
The fuck are you on about?
What are you fucking talking about, Francis?
Twilight is a 2013 film starring Robert Pattinson.
This would be a great episode, Benjamin, if you had watched the Twilight series and I'd watched the Twilight Zone and we were just at loggerheads for the entire
That'd
thing.
be good.
Let's do that instead. You talk about the film's Twilight and I'll talk about the Twilight Zone. Anyway, Benjamin.
Yeah.
Late 50s, 1959, I think.
Late 50s, 59 was the debut. 64.
63-ish? 64,
64.
Okay. Then a movie in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then a big old series in 2019.
From Jordan Peele.
Benjamin, I can't believe that was that long ago already. I still think of that as new.
Michael, I remember hearing the rumors of that reboot coming.
Fabulous stuff.
Awful. We're old. Maybe this is a Twilight Zone episode, Michael. Two fellas who think they're on the cusp of popular culture, but in fact, they're just trapped in a room repeating the same thing over and over and over.
We're just watching the whole bloody thing like it's the 1950s. Ben, but shut up for a second, because this was the easiest, the quintessential we've ever done.
Yeah, bang tidy.
It was so easy for 3 main reasons. Reason the first why this was the easiest quintessential we've ever done is that, first of all, Twilight Zone episodes are nice and short, thank God.
Michael, short, sweet, immaculate. Good stuff.
Delicious. delicious. No
Yeah.
sitting through fucking 6 hours of X-Files like we did a month
Thank
ago.
Christ.
And second thing, one of the other reasons that this was easy is that it's very easy to track down the quintessential Twilight Zone episodes because everybody knows which ones they are, including the producers of the Twilight Zone, because they keep remaking the quintessential ones.
Yeah. They keep doing it. It's like,
Yeah,
these worked really well. Let's just do that
yeah.
again.
Wheel them out,
Yeah.
wheel them out, but this time make communism terrorism or whatever is frightening Americans recently.
I mean, it's all the same, Michael, isn't it? Just one long continuum of terror.
It
Isn't
is
it?
exactly.
Continuum of
America is a
terror.
very go on.
Continuum
No,
of
no, go
terror is
on.
possibly the name of a Twilight Zone episode.
Probably is.
It's-
Probably is. And the third reason that this was
Yeah.
easy, and you've kind of hit on it already a little bit, to be honest, there, is that The Simpsons have already done this for us. The Simpsons have told us what the quintessential X-Files, the quintessential Twilight Zone episodes are, because they've had
Yes.
the Treehouse of Horror, and the Treehouse of Horror is the Simpsons retelling of the quintessential Twilight Zone episodes.
That's what it is. It's what it is. The Simpsons watched the Twilight Zone and went, "That's great. Let's do that, but with Bart."
Let's do a parody of that, but with Bartholomew J. Simpson. So the good thing about that was it kind of allowed me to watch the episodes that we got, the most common suggestions from the readers and the listeners, and then compare them to either the 1989 movie or the series or the 2019 series or the Three House of Horror episode of that episode, which was great crack, I have to say.
Yeah, great crack. Great.
Anyway, let's hammer down into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's hop on it, Michael.
Get up
Sure.
on it.
Look, we put this out, Michael, to the Reddits.
Yeah.
And you can find us out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you see the word quintessential on a subreddit, it's probably us. It's
probably
probably
us
us,
fucking
ladies
about.
and gentlemen. Fucking about. But one very, very handy commenter on the Reddit, Michael.
Go
My
on.
dark dance floor.
Sophie
it's
Ellis
pretty-
Bextor, I think it was.
Yes, it was Sophie Ellis Bextor on the Twilight Zone subreddit. But they suggested having
Maybe.
a different theme or vibe for each one to help cover the bases. Quintessential
Oh.
sci-fi, social commentary, heartwarming, silly, and creepy. So that's kind of what we did. And they gave us a pretty solid list, Michael. But we decided to start with one of the most bloody Twilight Zone-y of Twilight Zone episodes. The monsters are due on Maple Street.
Maple Street. Now, Ben's put a little twist in it there because I think it's pronounced Maple Street, but I guess we'll never know. Benjamin, so it's the late 1950s, and everyone
Yeah.
is just being all Americans.
Oh, they're just
And-
Americans hanging out doing American things, Michael.
Just doing American things like wearing caps and starting up automobiles.
Yep, that's it. And or
Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
getting real confused when they ain't starting.
You know, the other thing they're doing is they're being very ethnically white. But that was America in the 50s, apparently, Ben. I don't think black people started living in America until at least the 70s, if popular culture is to be believed.
Yeah, and they were invited and completely just welcomed with open arms, Michael. There wasn't any no
Very good.
shenanigans in the 1950s.
No special commentary like that in this, is there? Anyway, Benjamin, like every episode of the X-Files, I keep saying the X-Files, like every episode of the Twilight Zone, something flies overhead at the start, and everyone goes, "Was that a meteor? I think that was a meteor, Marge."
One of my favorite things about this, Michael, is they so casually accept that it's a meteor. Ah, it's a meteor.
Yeah.
It's a meteor. It's
Oh,
come
I
on,
guess
guys.
it was a meteor.
It's a meteor. And then, Michael, things start to go awry. And none of the electrics, Michael,
Yeah, which was
Are
a new
working.
invention at the time.
brand spanking new. Brand
Yeah.
spanking new. It was actually electricity that allowed Americans to put out the mass invitation to people of color to come over to the United States.
Which
That's a
happened
fun
after
fact.
this episode, obviously. But Ben,
Yeah.
this is not about aliens. I was surprised. To be
No.
honest. I was surprised by how many of the best episodes of this are one about aliens and two use the same stock footage and sets. But look, that's neither here nor there because this is only tangentially about aliens. Because one of the characters, a little boy who's reading too much comics, he shows up when everyone's a little bit spooked by there being no electrics. And he says, well, maybe it's the monsters are coming and they cut out the electrics and then they're going to come and eat us. And I heard that Sometimes this happens, and one family of locals, they're the monsters, and they came in advance. So we gotta ask ourselves, who's that family? Who's new? We hate new people.
So,
Let's all find us some new people to distrust.
so there's a young fella, and
Yeah.
he delivers his message in the most suspicious of ways that one could deliver an assumption, right? He says,
Yes,
"Oh,
go
they
on.
don't want you to go."
Mm.
To which I would turn around if I was in the 1950s. If I was Sam in this episode,
Who's Sam?
and someone turned around to me and said, "Oh, they don't want you to go, mister. They don't want you to do it." I'd say, "Who doesn't want me to do it?" And then I'd say, "How do you know that? Do you hear voices in your head?" And one way or the other, I'm steering clear of that kid for the rest of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not,
yeah. So what you
I'm not
what
dealing with
you've done
that.
here, Benjamin, is you've applied rational thought to this situation.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what this isn't really a horror about monsters because and here's a big twist for you. There's no monsters in this episode. The monsters were us all along with our prejudices and our jumping to conclusions and our witch hunts.
Michael, mark the first of many a Twilight Zone calling card there, Michael. We were the monsters all along. Perhaps one of the most defining traits of the Twilight Zone is, Jesus, aren't humans a bit shite altogether?
We were the monsters the whole time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very good episode, and
Oh, yeah.
you cannot. Okay, let's finish the description of the episode. So anyway,
Yeah.
everyone starts turning on each other. First of all, they turn on the loners, the slight out, the people with slight differences, people who you spend a lot of time indoors, Mister. You sure spend a lot of time looking up at the stars, Mister. And luckily, Benjamin, there's a middle-aged, rational white man there to try and get everyone to keep their calm, which is
Thank God.
very necessary. Benjamin, it's how
Yeah,
I've made my living, let's be honest. So
it,
people
it,
in
it
glass
actually
houses
is.
shouldn't throw stones. So, but he fails to keep a lid on everyone in this story.
Doesn't do great.
No, because everyone starts turning on each other and blaming each other. I tell you what you can really learn about this story. Americans are paranoid as shit.
As shit. They're not ready. They're not
They're
ready
not
for a
ready
life
for
of peace, Michael.
not ready for anything, Benjamin.
They can't do it. Bless them. Bless them.
Very suspicious, very untrusting. Now, it would be great to say we left this in the 50s, wouldn't it?
I think that's the saddest bit, Michael. I don't like. I think the other reason they probably keep adapting these, Michael, is because it's a piece of piss to do. Because it's as relevant today as it was back then. Yeah, it's a bit sillier. Yeah, it's a bit forced. It's a bit contrived in places. But Jesus, Michael, like turn on the television there and look at any news thing and
Yeah.
present a bit of evidence to an American, and whatever way they react to it, tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, but the sad thing is, it's not only Americans. This is relevant everywhere these days. It
Yeah,
does
yeah,
not, especially with the creeping power of the internet, because what the twist of this episode, Benjamin, is that it is aliens, actually.
yeah.
But they're
Two lads with antennas.
two lads with little antennas in a little spaceship. But they're not really, they're pretty sinister. But the whole point is they don't actually do anything. They just kind
Nope.
of spook everyone a little bit and let them tear themselves apart. And I mean, that's just the internet, isn't it? They just could have invented the internet.
Yep, they invented a physical internet.
Yeah, they
They
just
did.
start cars and turn off lights and everyone just goes internet mental.
Internet mad, Michael, is what they
Absolutely
go for.
internet mental. But look, you can't underplay the influence of this episode on pop culture because change the menace and change the setting, and you've got a lot of huge pop culture stories. Benjamin, this is The Mist. Frank Darabont's The Mist.
It's true.
It's the same. It's the same story.
It's true.
There's a vague threat outside. Everyone turns on each other. There's a mad fundamental religious woman, and then the Punisher shoots everyone at the end.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's the same story. Even things like The Walking Dead, the modern-ish TV show, it's the same idea. There's zombies, but that's not what The Walking Dead is about. The Walking Dead is about have a panic and watch humanity turn on itself.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's gonna happen every time, Michael. It's a classic. It's an absolute
Classic.
classic.
Absolute
Ah,
classic. I think this is almost betrayed a little bit by the fact that it is aliens at the end.
yeah. I mean, that I could argue that a lot, Michael. In a lot of these episodes, sometimes the twist is like, lads,
Ah, come
you
on.
stop.
Lads, that would have been
You stop.
better if it wasn't aliens. That would have been better if the power just came back on and it was a freak occurrence.
So yeah, I mean that would have been better. But like one of the things I really liked about this, Michael, I was quite nervous going into this because I was like, Jesus, these are going to be awful hokey and tacky from
Mm,
1959. And don't get me wrong, there's a good amount of tack to the
there
Twilight
is, yeah.
Zone from 1959, but some of it is stellar, Michael, visual storytelling and film making stuff. The bit that stood out to me in this massively, Michael, was the little detail of the hammer on the poor man who gets shot as he's coming back into town.
Why was he walking so funny, though? Come on. He brought that on himself, let's be
He was,
honest.
but it was kind of established, Michael, that he was under a bit of duress from the heat, Michael. It was very warm out.
The head. It was a warm day. That's true when the aliens came to Maple Street.
He'd been afflicted, Michael, by the heat of the day. But I thought those little details and some of the acting, I enjoyed the close up cuts when they were all accusing each other of bad things. Like that's it's great stuff, great tension building, Michael. And the scores. We talked a little bit about this last week, Michael, on our bloody great episode discussing horror shorts and why they work so well.
Mm.
And one of the great points that you made, Michael, among the many great points that you often make on this podcast,
So often
sure
do,
look, sure
Benjamin.
listen. Yeah, so often do. There's a little flex there. Good man, good man. There you go now, ladies and gentlemen. How's
Just
that?
for the listeners.
Enjoy that there. You look very svelte, Michael, all the same. Well
Thank you,
done.
Benjamin. I've got a diabetic condition.
Fuck. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. That's
I
my
don't.
first hearing
I
of
don't.
it as well.
I don't have a
I
diabetic
don't.
condition. It's just that was the only thing I could think of that would explain losing weight, but not be tragic.
In an equal twist, Michael, of equal magnitude and
Yes.
shock, we got
Yes,
our
Sam.
next episode, which
No,
was
you
Will
were
the Real
saying something.
Martian
You
please
didn't
stand?
finish your
I
point.
can't remember what I was saying, Michael.
You were talking
You've
about the
thrown me for a
audio,
loop.
Benjamin. The score.
Sorry. The score of this, Michael, is a testament throughout the Twilight Zone that music and soundscapes are essential to horror
Mm.
and building tension and this kind of thing. Because one of the details that stuck out to me, Michael, is when they're all arguing in the middle of town and they hear the shuffle of feet in the darkness. And it's the
Yeah.
old man with the hammer coming back.
Yeah.
But Jesus, Michael, it gets you. You want to turn your head and see what they're seeing. You're just there going, geez, what the fuck is that? Oh, Christ.
Yeah. Benjamin, this was probably the most common episode suggested for the quintessential. I think 9 out of 10 people who gave us 5 had this in it.
Yeah. You know, it's a
This-
solid call.
It is the quintessential, in my opinion, Twilight Zone episode.
Possibly my favorite, though, Michael, is the next one. Will the real Martian please stand up?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
Right out of town. This is hilarious because, in my opinion, Will the Real Martians Stand Up is the same story done worse.
Yeah, it is. It
It's-
is, but I think that's
it's-
why I like it.
Practically identical. So this is from a couple of years later, is it? Is this season 2 or season 3?
This is season 2, as far as I know, Michael.
And
1960.
it's so there's 2 cops, and they're investigating a meteor that flew overhead.
Yeah.
Because it was the 60s, and apparently everyone was terrified of UFOs. And I didn't realize quite how scary UFOs were in the 60s, Benjamin.
Oh, they're everywhere, Michael. They were coming to get you, oogly boogly.
They're coming to get you, and everyone was like, don't worry, it's just a meteor flying overhead. So a meteor has landed in Sully's Lake or whatever. I haven't listened very carefully to this, but there's a meteor in the lake, but there's tracks leading away from the meteor, Benjamin.
Yeah.
And the 2 cops,
I was just going to say, which can only mean one thing, Michael.
fucking aliens, I reckon.
It's bloody alien over there in that diner.
There's an alien
there.
in this fucking diner over here. They're 2 real small town. I love the small town cops out in a snowy forest vibe of the opening of this episode. It's very X-Files.
Yeah. Look, Michael, this is so seminal. I told you before, chock full of semen, Michael. But
Absolutely, like a 24-year-old's ball sack.
it's left its DNA fucking everywhere, like a
Oh, just-
24-year-old's ball sack.
its DNA
Yeah.
all over pop culture.
It's fucking everywhere, Michael. But anyway, my favorite bit of this, Michael, is that these two cops go into a diner and say, "Right, there's an alien here. Which one of you fucks is it?"
Which one of you is it? It's one of you fucks, that's for sure. Who is it? Is it this couple? Is it that couple? Is it sexy older lady?
Because Michael, if I was in this world and applying logic, the two strangers that just walked in out of the cold and said, "Right, there's an alien in here," I'd be like, "It's one of you. It's one of you
It's one of
boys,
used to.
right there.
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah,
yous
yeah.
two." But it's not, Michael. It's not one of them's two.
No,
It's not one of
well,
them's two at all.
don't spoil it. Don't spoil it yet, because it's the same fucking story. It's a story of
Yeah,
Cold War paranoia. It's a story of which one of us is a Soviet spy.
yeah. Who's a spy?
Who's a spy for the old Reds?
Oh, the dirty, dirty Reds.
But this has
Who
the
is it?
best character in the entire series of episodes we watched, and that's the grizzled old prospector man, who is just absolutely incredible. You're like, well, I know I was on the bus, but one of y'all wasn't on the bus.
That's I think that's Jack Elam, Michael, is the name of that actor. And that was his entire career. He was
Yeah,
the mad prospector in everything. When you needed a mad prospector, be it in Once Upon a Time in the West or
yeah,
Cannonball Run
yeah.
or Kiss Me Deadly, if you needed a madman, it's probably going to be old Jack Elam. He could be
He,
brought in.
the looking back on the TV show, the Disney cartoon Gravity Falls, there's a
Yeah.
mad old prospector in that who is just entirely this guy.
Yeah, it's him. It's that guy.
He's
It's
having
Jack
a gr-
Elam.
he's having a great time, and it's one of the best bits of this episode.
Yeah, he's just mad. He's having a whale of a time, Michael, and he's mental. He's
Yeah, he's great.
he's like, I know, I'm a good man. I know I'm, but then it's like,
Maybe he's the alien though.
but again, I suppose that's Rod Serling being like, would you judge a mad old man for being an alien? You might
Yeah,
be
or would
wrong.
you think he's not a Soviet spy because he's too mad and harmless?
Yeah, so look, it all goes it all goes a bit wrong. It all goes a bit peak for the folks in the diner. And my favorite bit is, I think my favorite bit of this, Michael, is they all go out in the cold. And then
Yeah.
we find out one man walks back into the diner
Yes.
and he says, "Well, I'm the only survivor." And then Michael, he's like, "And also, I'm an alien."
I'm a fucking alien. Look at my extra arm. I had it the whole time. Fucking stupid twist. I hate this ending. This is so dumb. This is the second dumbest ending of the 5 episodes we watched.
Hang on now, Michael. Hold on. Are
Yes, go
you
on.
going to tell me? Are you going to
Yes.
look me in the eye
I'll
and
look you dead
say
in the eye.
that an old timey diner slash ice cream man whipping off his hat to reveal that he's got a third eye underneath it isn't Oscar worthy stuff? Because I
Fucking
defy you,
incredible.
Michael.
Fucking incredible. That is an incredible 5-minute sequence of TV absolute nonsense. So they head off, and then your band comes back and goes, well, everyone's dead except me. And the guy behind the counter goes, well, how aren't you wet? And the guy said, wet? I don't know the word wet. And he goes, weren't you in the lake? Oh, that was just an illusion. I've led you on a wild goose chase. How does this motherfucker know what a wild goose chase is, but he doesn't know what the
But
word
no.
wet means? What the fuck is he talking about? Absolute nonsense. Talking like a 1950s businessman, and he doesn't know what the word wet means. Like, the lack of linguistic awareness in some Twilight Zone episodes is spectacular.
Yeah, continuity not the strong point of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen.
And then the other guy just goes, well, I'll tell you what, you might be an alien, but I'm even more of an alien. What do you think of that? And he just sits
What
there quietly like, ah, fuck, he is more of an alien. Ah, oh, I guess I'm
Gosh
bollocked.
darn it.
Gosh
Yeah, and
darn it.
it turns out they're two opposing forces from Mars and Venus. Ah, it's fabulous. It's fabulous stuff, Michael.
Absolute nonsense. It's such a good tense episode, then undermined by the schlockiest of schlocky double twists. That
Yeah.
it's I think it so undermines itself. It could be up there with Monsters of Jew on Maple Street, but So farcical is the comical double reveal at the end, and the guy either pretending or genuinely not knowing what the word wet means is like, "Ah, I can't abide it." It is funny
Can't
though.
stomach it, Michael. Can't
It is
stomach
it
it.
is it is still funny. But again, like, The Thing is the same story as this.
Yeah. Which one of us is infected with a deadly shape-shifting parasite?
Yeah, yeah. The one of the best episodes of The X-Files, Ice, is also
Yeah.
this.
Classic. Classic.
Like,
T-
the schlocky double twist can't take away from the fact of how seminal this was as a kind of who's the spy, who's the undercover, who's among us, Benjamin, who's the sus imposter.
It's so interesting because you mark it down there accurately, Michael, as the schlocky double twist, right?
Mm,
And it's a shame because the first 20 minutes of that episode, chef's kiss, little masterclass
chef's
in tension in a room. It's good
incredible.
stuff. Jack Elam and the crazy prospector aside, it's a well written thing. And it is the defining kryptonite for Rod Serling as a writer that he had to make it fit the Twilight Zone format, that he had to
Yeah.
do it. Because, you know, there's been a lot of speculation in the last couple of years on the legacy of the Twilight Zone and stuff like that. And it's widely regarded that Rod Serling, actually a very good writer, and when he hit his stride, magnificent stuff. But every once in a while, Michael, he just hammed it up at the end. And he did it. And
Oh,
it's
incredible.
it's both a parallel for his career as a writer and also his life, because unfortunately for Rod Serling, he became a parody of the Twilight Zone narrator. Um, he got a lot of praise during the late 50s and 1960s for the Twilight Zone. He was in fact hailed as the savior of television by the head of programming in America. He said there was one show that gave him hope at an award ceremony, and it was the Twilight Zone. But
Mm,
unfortunately for him, he I suppose he's the series that launched 1,000 ships and parodies. Do you know what I mean? And people got on the speculative sci-fi train, and then Rod Serling had to distinguish himself again. But he was so quintessential, and you'll
oh,
excuse us, ladies and gentlemen, for bloody borrowing our own phrase there. But he was such a quintessential narrator and a recognizable household sound that a ton of marketing companies were like, get Rod Serling to do it. He's instantly
yeah,
recognize him. Get that whiskey voiced, bloody smooth motherfucker to advertise some cigarettes and some cars. Get him out there.
yeah. I love how he just appears at the start of a lot of episodes with a half-smoked fag in his hand. How
Yeah.
many takes did they have to do for that?
Yeah. Oh, so many. Rod was puffing away like a chimney. He was
I
just,
don't
he
thi
was just,
I don't think it's a really funny thing about that actually with cigarettes in old-timey media. I don't think they obviously didn't care about continuity of how long your cigarette was. Imagine, like, if a TV presenter was doing an intro to a show now just munching on a Snickers. He's like, "You have to take the same amount of bites, Donal O'Leary," if that's the guy from Britain's Got Talent.
they say you're not yourself when you're hungry, but
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
yourself when you've been taken over by an alien host either.
An absolute son of a bitch of an alien. Benjamin, what's the next episode?
Michael, speaking of things that could use more restraint, this podcast aside,
Oh, give us a review. Go on.
sometimes we get the
Yeah.
absolute crackerjack episodes of restraint from the Twilight Zone, where the twist isn't aliens, but it's also done in a very artistic light. We got the Hitchhiker for the next episode, Michael.
Oh, it's a very good one, Benjamin. There's a woman and she's on the road on her own, and that's spooky enough.
Nan Adams
Nan
is her
Adams.
name.
Terrible
That's her
names in
name.
America in the 60s. They should have been ashamed of
Just
themselves.
in the bin. In the bin, the
Yeah.
lollies.
Yeah. In the a young attractive lady for some reason called Nan,
From Sweden. From Sweden,
of all
Michael.
places.
Of
Of all
all
places.
places.
Benjamin, now come here. Look,
Yeah.
there's a cross-country horror vibe to this, reminiscent of, but not the same as, but reminiscent of the best bit of Jeepers Creepers,
Yeah.
aka the opening kind of 15 to 25 minutes.
The bit I can stomach, Michael, is
Yeah,
is
yeah,
is
the
yeah.
good bit of Jeepers Creepers before it becomes a Buffy episode. But there is a horror in the vast, wide, open, terrifying spaces of an American cross-country trip that I
I wouldn't
think
drive it, Michael.
no, well, you can't for one thing, but like for us living on a little island, a little rock in the middle of the ocean, Ben, being able to like set off and drive for days just feels mental.
It's nuts. Sure, I could be in Cork in 2 hours, Michael.
That's as far as you can go.
That's as far as I can go. If I drive any further, I'm done.
You're done. You're just in the feckin' water. You did a big Titanic. So, like this is an experience that feels remote and exotic to us. A lot of Irish kids grow up thinking, "Oh, I'd love to do like an American road trip when I'm older."
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be
Yeah, but
great.
not after you've seen this.
No, I will never, ever, ever. If I ever see, Michael, if I ever do my great American road trip and I
Yeah,
see
go
a
on.
doughy faced, doe eyed gentleman at the side of the road, I'll just go, no, fuck you.
No,
And I'll keep
try and run
going.
him over, Ben.
Try and run him over. Sort that out right away, Michael. Sort that
Or
out
will it?
right
Or
away.
will it? Or will it?
Or
Anyway,
will
Ben,
it, Michael?
there's two things to talk about here. It
Go
doesn't
on.
really have a story as such. So,
No.
not really. It's she's heading across country. She's gravelly. She's gradually mentally unwinding as everywhere she goes, she sees this kind of not angelic is the word I'm looking for. Serene looking, spooky hitchhiker man.
Yeah.
Go on.
He's the most fuddy duddy little fella.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
this he's not like terrifying in a modern TV way. If this was a modern TV show, he would be played by Steve Buscemi and would be inherently creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or he'd be in rags and you wouldn't see his face, or there'd be something off-putting. Well, there is something off-putting about him, but I don't think they would have the restraint for him to be more or less just a normal fella.
No. Again, I suppose it comes back to that phrase that we used, Michael, of restraint, because this is done very well, and the realization gets to dawn on us over time of what's happening.
Hmm.
And it's, I suppose it's perhaps a testament to how Rod Serling regarded death, or perhaps his faith in the fact that death, no matter what way you portray him, is kind of creepy and unnerving. It's nothing to fear. Like, there is. It's very easy for us in the early stages of this episode, Michael, to give way to the paranoia that Nan is feeling and be
Yeah.
like, who's this man? Who is this sinister spectre out to get me? You know, what's going on? It's not. It's just death being like, here, come here to me. You've lost your way. You just come here. It's grand. It's over. Stress is done. You're all right.
Yeah.
Come on.
So that's the twist. The twist is she actually died in the car crash at the start, which I don't think we mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. She died. So she's been dead the whole time. And again, to our 2024 eyes and ears, watching a show where the main character has been dead the whole time, that barely even registers as a twist to modern audiences. That would be groan worthy in the year of our Lord 2024.
They did it in Scrubs, Michael. Scrubs.
They've done it in everything. The I was dead the whole time, you were dead all along. But I like how it's handled here, exactly like you said, where it's calm and it's peaceful. And like if this was 1989 and they got George Miller to direct it, the moment she realized, his face would have turned into a mask of bloody death and screamed and rushed towards her. And it would have ended with her being carried off into the afterlife with the sound of cackling.
Yeah, being dragged by her heel and given road
Yeah,
rash
yeah,
as he did
yeah.
so. Yeah, it'd be awful.
Like
Oh,
a Drag Me to Hell, for example, like the end of Drag Me to Hell. Now, I know the twist in that isn't she was dead all along, but
eh.
yeah. I don't know if this was the first she was dead all along bit of speculative fiction, but it's a good one.
It's I like it. I thought it was a really strong episode, just for its quiet little creeping dread, Michael. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good bit of creeping dread. Benjamin, speaking of creeping
Yes.
dread, and speaking of George Miller being a 1989 lunatic, the next episode is probably the most famous episode of The Twilight Zone.
The most parodied, copied, mimicked episode of the Twilight Zone ever to exist. Nightmare at 20,000 feet, Michael.
which is the cruising altitude of a 1960s airplane.
Thank you very much for telling me that. What's the cruising altitude of today's modern aircraft, Michael?
About 30,000 feet, Benjamin. That's why
Oh,
the 2019 episode starring Adam Scott is called Nightmare at 30,000 feet and is also
Adam Scott.
rubbish.
And it's also shite.
It's shite. It's a
Um,
load of shite, unfortunately.
I haven't seen any of the new one, Michael. Have you watched any of the new one?
Well, I watched Nightmare at 30,000 feet after
Which you just
watching,
explained. Yeah.
yeah, which I've just explained, after watching the original 1959 or 1960 episode.
It's 1963, believe it or not, Michael.
1963, and the 1989 segment from the movie, which I know we said was off limits, but you can't talk about Nightmare at 20,000 feet without the more famous episode, I would say, or it maybe might just be something to do with my vintage because I was around in 1989, and for me that was the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair. Like, that's your Twilight Zone. That's your
So
Twilight
anyway,
Zone.
Captain Kirk's on an airplane, Benjamin,
Captain Kirk's on a plane.
and he's not
Yeah,
making love to that airplane like he would with the
he's
mountain
not.
because
No,
he's been off in rehab because he had a bit of a mentee bee.
he had a good old fashioned 2024 Menti B.
No, he had a good
He
old
did.
fashioned 1959 mentee bee. So he just went off for a year of relaxation and they told him, "You're overstressed. Don't worry about it. You just need to calm the fuck down. It's the early 60s. Calm down. Have a smoke on an airplane."
Sit down there, spark up, relax, take it easy, and have a puff. Go on,
Yeah.
relax. Take
Well,
it
actually, they told him he can't. But yeah.
My favorite thing about this, Michael, is so he has a Menti B, and we're
Yeah.
given Rod Serling's treatment of the unreliable narrator trope, which
Oh, go
is
on.
is this fella a bit mental and
Yeah.
hallucinating, or is there a strange little oogly boogly boy on the wing of this plane dismantling it in the air?
No, there's definitely an ugly boogly fella.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a little gremlin, little plane
Yeah.
gremlin, little plane gremlin.
It's not even that
Michael,
little. It's a man in a Bigfoot suit. Benjamin, did you struggle to find this one on the high seas?
no, I didn't actually. I didn't struggle to find any of them on the high seas, Michael.
Good. Because some
But
of them are available quite legitimately on Paramount Plus, but some of these older episodes are hard to find legitimately. Now, I didn't pirate them, obviously, and neither did Benjamin, but the listeners might
No,
have to.
no, we would never do that, Michael. I
Never do
get
that.
seasick. I don't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sailing.
Anyway, Captain Kirk's on the airplane. He had a mentee bee, and everyone's been. What I think is amazing about this episode is he's absolutely freaking out. He's having
Yeah,
an
yeah,
absolute madness attack. And everyone is so nice to him to the
yeah.
point of
Wouldn't
being a
happen
little
today.
bit. Yeah, no, exactly. And it doesn't. And that's the real contrast between this one and the George Miller one and the current, the 2019 one. In the George Miller one, everyone's horrible. Everyone is absolutely horrible. He goes mad, and the plane is just full of awful George Miller esque Mad Max rejects, but just on an 80s flight. And it's horrible. It's a
It
horrible,
is.
horrible experience. And in a way, the other passengers and John Lithgow's own reactions are more horrifying than the monster. Although the 1989 monster is way more physically horrifying than the monster in this, who looks
I've
ridiculous.
never seen the 1980s one.
Oh, it's incredible.
I'm going to look
It's
them up.
I would the monster or the whole episode. You
I'm
haven't
going
seen
to
the
look
monster.
up
You haven't seen
the.
the episode.
I haven't seen the
He's
episode.
a
Hang on.
he's a great monster, but the monster in this one is the most dumbass looking thing they've ever made, and
He's a little frump. I don't
he's
know
a
what
little
he is.
frumpy man. He's a little fucking Bigfoot or something. But it kind of doesn't matter because the horror is no one believes him because he had a mentee bee.
Yeah, it's a classic case of you're just hysterical.
Don't calm down. It's incredible that it's not a woman. That the main
Th-
character is not a woman.
that's something I was genuinely going to say here, Michael. Like in any other 1960s thing, it would have been a woman undermined, but in this, it's a fella, and I think that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
unusual in itself. I think that's
yeah,
pretty weird.
yeah, yeah.
The
The other,
monster's awful in the 1980s one.
terrifying pumpkinhead alien sort of
Yeah, that's
awful
grim.
thing. And the 1980s one has some crazy ass special effects. including a few like distortions of John Lithgow's face that kind of do a thing where you go, oh, maybe he is the Gremlin Monster Man. Maybe it is him and it is all happening in his head. But I mean, the pair of directors of these two episodes, incredible. Richard Donner directed the 60s one.
Insane. Insane, Michael.
Superman's Richard Donner. And then Mad
I,
Max's George Miller directed the 1989 one. Incredible pair of directors.
I mean, look, it's pretty interesting. This did become kind of a testing ground for who would become great directors. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a pretty famous, like not to leave out bloody Captain Kirk, who you just hit the nail on the head of. Like some people got big roles after they did the Twilight Zone. So it's pretty interesting to see that kind of pop up every now and then. But people like Richard Donner, the man who went on to direct Superman, Michael, as you already
Yeah.
know, pretty huge.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, incredible. Oh shit, I was going to say something else about this, but I've forgotten what it was. Oh yeah. The other thing to bear in mind about this is, and I was joking about this earlier when we were talking about the monsters on Maple Street, when I said that they were all worried because the electricity was gone and it was quite new. Commercial airlines in the early 60s were quite new.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there probably was a lot more fear of flying. The next time this story is going to be told is in 25, 30 years when there is freely available commercial touristic space flight.
Yeah,
And
and there'll
then
be a
you'll
gremlin
be
on
able
the
to
wing of the thing.
remake this again. Not with Adam Scott though, because that version's rubbish.
Hopefully made with Chris Pine to keep the Captain Kirk thing going.
Oh yeah, very good. He'll
You know,
probably be a
I'd
bit
like.
too old by then. The best thing about this episode though, Benjamin, is when William Shatner guest starred in an episode of Third Rock from the Sun. Have you ever seen that episode?
Old Willie Schatz. No, I
Willie
haven't. Oh no, Lithgow does. He redoes his famous scene, doesn't he? He
So
redoes.
So William Shatner is having his character in Third Rock from the Sun is having a MTB, and he says, "I was on a plane and there was a creature on the wing, and nobody believed me." And John Lithgow's character says, "The same thing happened to me." Best meta joke in all of pop culture history. I absolutely love it.
It's
But the
bang tidy.
1950s, the 1960s version, it's so much more restrained. It's so much more peaceful in a way. Like
Yeah,
the 89 one is manic, and
yeah,
the 2019 one is kind of post 9/11 American updated fears thing, but it lacks atmosphere in a lot of ways. But the 59 one is incredible. The 60s one is incredible.
yeah. Real Michael. And then, kind of, I suppose from there, Michael, back to an absolutely mental episode of Twilight Zone.
Fucking dumbass shit of the highest order. Again,
This
back
is
to
my
the
least favorite, Michael.
fucking absolute atrocity of an episode. So we're talking about the episode To Serve Man. And again, Benjamin, you and I are somewhat qualified in linguistics, so we have a few opinions on this sort of thing. But there was not a linguist, there wasn't a linguist on set for years in the early Twilight Zone episodes, because this whole episode hinges on an absolute nonsense of a twist. So
Oh,
much
Michael.
so that it's one of the funniest Simpsons gags and one of the most memorable Simpsons Twilight Zone gags. But we'll get to that in a minute, because the aliens are here and they're going to give us a dig out.
Yeah, they're sound. The lads are
They're
sound.
sound. They're very
Sound as
tall.
boys.
They look a little
Yeah.
bit like a Frankenstein.
Or like a James Bond henchman villain.
They look a little bit like a Jaws, not the shark, for example. They're very tall. They're 9 foot tall, and they don't speak. They communicate telepathically, or they communicate to each other telepathically, but they communicate to us through some sort of machine generated voice, but we don't see the
Something
machine.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they didn't
And
have
they're like,
the budget.
yeah, and they're like, listen, lads, we're going to give you a new type of petrol. And then we're watching in 2024 going, oh, that probably isn't the solution, to be honest with you. We thought of that. Didn't work out.
Yeah, we gave it a go. Not for us. Not for us, lads.
No. So anyway, everyone's like, these aliens, these Kenemites, they're fucking sound out. It's great stuff.
Great
But they left
lads.
this
Great
book-
bunch of lads, the Canamits.
They left these book here. let's get some code breakers. Code breakers, Benjamin. Breaking a code isn't the same as breaking a language, but no one in this seems to know that. So anyway,
Nope.
they get some code breakers and they're going to try and translate the book. And they translate the book and they try first substitution ciphers, second substitution ciphers. Nothing seems to work. It's like, oh, lads, come on. This is like World War II primitive computer code breaking at its best.
It
Like,
is.
they're absolutely baffled by this book. But it turns out that on the front of the book, there's a 2-letter word, a 5-letter word, and a 3-letter word. And it translates exactly into the phrase to serve man. And everyone goes,
Oh,
grand, they're here to serve us. That's fucking great stuff. It's a grand bunch of lads, these canamats.
fabulous.
Let's all
Fabulous.
head en masse to their home planet.
That'll be great. They love us. They're going to serve us on their home planet. How convenient.
How convenient they're going to serve us on their home planet. And then, this is so stupid. And then the main character, whose name is Michael, and therefore he's an idiot. He there's never been a clever Michael in pop culture, Benja. So he's about to get on the spaceship, which is the same motherfucking spaceship from the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. It's the same
Yeah.
spaceship because
Yeah.
they've only got one. He's about to get on it, and the lady assistant shows up and goes, I figured it out. It's a cookbook.
Yeah, you should probably
And
get off that bloody.
get off that. It means to serve man, as in to serve you for dinner. And the Kennemits are actually harvesting people. And Benjamin, if everything is free, you are the product. That's the twist.
Ah,
The
oh,
twist
that's the
is
twist.
we're the
It's too good to be
pigs.
true.
We're the
Yeah.
pigs in the barn with the free food and the warmth and
These
the
oats are
electrics.
great.
Yeah, free oats, brother. May I have some of your oats?
What's that from, Michael? That's been bopping around
that-
the internet for a while now.
It is. That's a guy who did an incredible Warhammer 40,000 meme video of a painting of two pigs. But that's neither here nor there. Well, it's
Fabulous.
kind of here.
Fabulous.
It's kind of relevant because that's us. Benjamin, with the lesson we're to learn in this is if everything seems too good to be true and too free to be true, you are the product.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we're now charging $28.50 per episode for this podcast. You can subscribe down below because we wouldn't treat you like pigs, ladies and gentlemen. We wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen.
Well, look, if the Kennemits were truly a reflection on modern corporations, what they would do is they would give us everything for free at the start and then gradually make everything worse and make us pay small subscriptions to get back to the way it was.
Yeah, exactly. In shitification, Michael.
The
In
Kennemits would
shitification of the
shitify the
cosmos.
world. Yeah, the
Yeah.
absolute fucking arseholes. They'd be like, oh, well, the soil nitrites used to be part of the basic package, but now they're part of the premium package. So if you'd like to you can get 20 soil nitrites for free every week, or you can get 50 per day with the premium Kennemit subscription package. Anyway, Benjamin, that's a terrible joke. I've over-egged it. Sounded funnier in my head, but it wasn't great. Ben,
Yeah.
the whole thing hinges on a silly linguistic pun.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
it doesn't even make sense in other Earth languages.
Nope, not even a little bit.
Like,
Not even a
why
little
would
bit.
these
Not good.
why would these incredibly different aliens who probably wouldn't even have the concepts, like if they're communicating telepathically, they
Yeah.
wouldn't have the concepts of different meanings for the same pronunciation because the motherfuckers
have they got
wouldn't be
cookbooks,
pronouncing
Michael?
anything. Why have
have
they
they
got
got cookbooks?
cookbooks? No one even has cookbooks anymore in the year of our Lord 2024. It's all on the internet.
They're a telepathic race, Michael. They don't need fucking cookbooks.
What they got cookbooks for?
Get the fuck out of here.
Absolute dumbassery. Not a linguist was bothered in the entire writing of that episode.
On the planet. On the entire
No.
planet of Earth.
They didn't ask a single one if this twist. Oh, I mean, it's a cookbook being shouted out to Michael as he's boarding the spaceship. It's up there with the classics like "It Was Earth All Along, You Maniacs."
Oh, it's a good rug pull.
Soylent
It's a good rug pull.
Yeah, Soylent Green is made of people. Like, it's one of the classic rug pulls, but it's absolute nonsense. Where have you
Yeah.
gone?
Now, look,
What are you thinking about?
my least favorite of the things is this one, because I was just sitting there going, nah, you've put, because I can allow one at a time. I can allow one thing at a time in the episodes. If it's, you know, if it's an unnecessarily shoehorned alien, like in the Monsters are Due on Maple Street, fine. I can allow that because the rest of the episode is spectacular. If
Mm.
it's shitty alien makeup, like a third arm or a third eye in the middle of their head that's clearly
Yeah.
painted on, that's fine because it was a great tense episode up until that. If it's a ridiculous thing of death being the hitchhiker on the road, that's fine because it had to be
Yeah.
some spectral entity. I can allow that, Michael. I can
Oh.
even get on board with the weird little ugly buggly gremlin man because Willie Schatz being the bloody silly nervy bee menty bee boy is fine, and it's a good episode up until that. But this has shit makeup, a weird rug pull, a shoehorned twist. It's got them all. It's no fucking good, Michael. No
It's a
fucking good.
cookbook. It's a cookbook, Benjamin. Fuck off away from me.
It's
Anyway,
no
those were the
fucking good.
quintessential Twilight Zone episodes, and they were all fabulous to an episode.
And they were all fabulous to an episode. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we don't have time to keep going this week because I'm on a bloody deadline.
Don't you have to go? We're not even talking about Batman.
We're not even talking
All
about
right.
Batman, Michael. It's fucking awful. I have to go.
All
But
right.
ladies and gentlemen, come here to me. That was the quintessential. Do you know how you can vote on the quintessentials and see which ones we do quintessentials of?
Yes.
You can hop up on the Discord. It's linked below in the description, ladies and gentlemen. Get up
Hop
on
up.
it. It's absolutely free. And one day we'll open up a thread that's called collect, and the many, many people in the Discord will try and figure out what it means. And it means to serve podcast listeners. And you'll go,
no.
they were looking after us all along. But no, we're going to eat you, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's
Yeah, we're
going to
gonna eat you.
happen. That's
Yeah.
what it's for. But ladies and gentlemen, there's a few different ways you can keep in touch with this podcast. First of all, if you enjoyed the episode, give us a review wherever you listen.
Go on, 5 stars. 4 stars. We'll take 4 stars this week because Ben forgot to review the Absolute Batman. Quick, Ben, review it. Is
Ladies
it
and
good?
gentlemen, it's very good. It's very good. It's
Very
a
good.
shame.
Okay,
It would have been a
great
great review. Would have
Great
been a
review.
great review.
Poor
Would have
John.
been a great review.
5 stars.
But ladies and gentlemen, there's a few different ways you can keep in touch with us. You can find us on the interwebs at www.showmeabeag.com, SEOMORABEAG.com.
It means tiny room in Irish, kind of.
Sort of a little bit. You can also find us on SureLookSureListenPodcast.acast.com.
Much more up to date. Go on there.
Far more up to date. But ladies and gentlemen, the links to our TikTok and our Instagram are down below. It's great for the shorter attention span focused individuals amongst us.
Like Ben.
We're much more bearable in 1 minute slots.
I disagree. Go on.
Go on. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had enough of us, you can join us in a week's time.
Already?
Yes.
For this
where we'll be-
podcast.
For this podcast. No.
Yeah,
Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, you can hear our other podcast, Collecting Issues, the monthly comic book club, where we just took a look at All-Star Superman and are currently reading The Nice House on the Lake, issues 1 to 12. You can join along at the Collecting Issues Discord, which is also linked below down in the
So
description.
many
If
links.
you've ever wanted to be part of a comic book club and read along with us, you can join that Discord right now. But
Go on.
if you've had enough of us but think you'll want more of us in a week's time when we do another episode of Sure Look, Sure Listen, you can tune in next week when we'll be talking about what's going on in that creepy village. Ooh, ugly buggly societies in fiction.
Oh, we're going to watch The Village by M. Night
We're going to watch
Shyamalan.
The Village or Children of the Corn.
Oh, or anything else with a spooky village. You tell us,
Or
listeners.
Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot, yeah.
You
We
can
could
let
just go
us
to
know.
Macroom, County Cork, Ben.
Or just go, you got a real axe to grind with Macroom.
Do.
But ladies and gentlemen,
I do,
that's
actually.
it from us for this week. We're out of here. Bye-bye. I'm off to go
Bye.
and join some aliens who said
See
they
ya.
wanted to serve me.
Yeah, because we're aliens. We were aliens the whole time, by the way. That's the twist.
Yeah.
That was the
Yep,
twist.
yep.
That we were aliens the whole time.
Got him. Bye.
See ya.